Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I know we have a lot of frequent flyers in the Zoom. It's good to see a bunch of familiar faces and names, and I know there's a few new folks in here as well. The K12 lab is a part of the D.school, which is a part of Stanford University, and our work is in particular. Oh, getting some feedback there. Is in particular to bring creative confidence and creative courage to the K12 sector with the specific goal of addressing and obliterating the opportunity gaps that we see when we look at the K12 sector. And our goal is to be a part of emboldening folks throughout the sector to design new, more equitable, more just models, and to share those design approaches and that creative confidence, that creative courage, that contagiousness of creativity with students and educators alike. And we do that in a whole bunch of ways. Stanford courses, lots and lots of offerings for educators, which many of you have been a part of, and design projects. And one of the ways that our own design projects happen are through fellows and fellowships. And so this particular stretch of learning dens that Ashanti is kicking off with us, but that will continue throughout the fall and perhaps beyond, is featuring fellows who have been a part of the K12 lab and the Stanford D.school and have used, in a great sense of the word, have used that platform to do really powerful design work. And part of our goal in the lab is to keep pushing the boundaries of what people understand design to even mean and what people understand it could do in K12. And so this is all a part of that. We'd love, obviously we're passionate about what we do. We're nerds about this stuff. We love to dig into it and talk about it and debate it and push the boundaries of it. So for folks who are interested in learning more about the lab or getting more involved, drop either a general note in the chat or a private one to Laura or myself or Susie. And also, feel free to just keep signing up for our events and continuing to be involved. And with that, I'll pass it back to Laura to properly introduce our guest for the evening.
So yeah, so he should be shaking your head, Ashanti. You're like, uh-oh. So a little backstory. I met Ashanti way before. I was at the D.school. I worked at High Tech High. Some folks might know that organization. I was running a conference back down there. And we had this end of the final conference or the final keynote of a 3-day conference is always tough. You've been in a conference for 3 days. Yeah, people are shaking their heads. You're like, yeah, I'm out. I'm good. I'm going to miss the final keynote. I'm good, right? People get the planes. It's a thing, right? And so we were blessed to have Ashanti come and do the final keynote at one of our conferences. And I will say, without hurting anyone's feelings, it was the best keynote I've really ever experienced in my entire life. Because it brought people together. I've never seen this before, where he put 1,000 people in a room together to share authentically, like what they really were feeling, how they were reacting to the world, and who they showed up. There were connections, but it was like the most authentic experience with 1,000 people I've ever experienced. And that story that Ashanti told in that meeting just speaks to so much of his work. I've traveled with Ashanti. We've been to Australia, and and one of the things that I love about Ashanti is that he is the work. He breathes the work. The why is part of who he is, and he is a human being that humbly is in service of his work. And so I'm gonna probably stop talking so you can all hear from the great Ashanti, and I'm just gonna kick it to Shanti with the first question to share a little bit about what the Ever Forward Club is. And also why you started it. Why is it your why? And why do you continue, right, to serve the students that you're working with and be in pursuit of really helping this organization and young people grow around the world?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks everybody, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm an Oakland boy, born and raised. I was raised by a single mother. And it was challenging growing up. If I could have made choices of how it was going to start off, I would have chosen probably some different options looking back. But I'm glad that things happened the way they did to bring me today. Everforward is a youth development organization. We have 3 major programs. We have the Everforward Club, we have Ever Forward Professional Development, and we have Ever Forward Experiences. And so the Ever Forward Club is for young men, middle school and high school. It's a safe space that we create for young men, like a brotherhood, to just talk about what's going on in their life in a healthy way. It's that space that started in 2004 is what we originally started with. And when I came to the D.school from our fellowship in 2015-16, the Ever Forward Experiences and Professional Development didn't exist. But out of these questions of like trying to figure out how do we continue growing the work we're trying to do and have a bigger reach in our work, the other two pieces were already waiting. Like I already enjoyed working with teachers. As a teacher for 10 years, an administrator for 3, I already believed in the hard work that teachers do and the lack of appreciation that they get. Imagine if you can have watched any kind of videos over the last 6 months, you hear parents have a whole new appreciation for teachers. I wish they always did. I wish that our country was a place that a teacher was highly respected. You know, I had the opportunity right after I started Ever Forward. I started Ever Forward in 2004 at San Lorenzo High School. I was a first-year teacher. And the reason I started it was because I saw smart young men in my classes that were failing. Like smarter than I was at their age. And I was a hardworking student. I'm like, dude, why are you so smart, but you're failing my class? Like, I like you. Like, why don't you fail the class of one of these teachers who don't like you? Because that shouldn't be why you're failing my class. And what I realized was that the building relationships was the root of that teaching. Like when I was in school, I was going to do the work whether I liked the teacher or not. But I knew students that if they didn't like you, they ain't doing your work. They ain't doing what you asked them to do. So it started out of this journey of me trying to figure out how to be a good teacher for all my students, whether they liked math, didn't like math, liked school, didn't like school. And I was actually, when I look back, so this is 2004, I had a lot of time to think about it in the journey. I feel like we're still a startup. Like you imagine a 16-year-old organization, you should have a bunch of stuff figured out. Well, I still got interns that don't show up. I still got other stuff. I still got paperwork on all of my desk. I don't even have files for some of this paperwork on my desk. I don't even know where it should go. So I keep it on my desk so I don't lose it. Like I wish I had it all figured out by now. But what I'm clear about is that our work continues to evolve with whatever is next. And we're not jumping around from stuff, but it's in alignment with making spaces safe for young people to be their full self and be seen. And then when I look back, I was creating what I needed. When I look back to myself in high school and middle school, I was academically driven, but I had no social emotional really support. There was no place to talk about what I was going through. I was told you don't talk about feelings, especially as a man growing up in Oakland where I grew up. So I bottle everything up. And sometimes things can hit a point where you can't bottle them anymore. If anybody ever made kombucha, anybody in kombucha makers out there, like if you try and leave that cap for too long, you're gonna see a bottle explode. If you've ever seen that happen, now that's a whole other story. That's one of my hidden talents. Like I create things, but I'm thankful for the work because the work came through me. Like I wanted to be rich. Like if you grew up poor like I grew up, you wouldn't choose a job where you barely make it from month to month. That wouldn't be very wise, at least as far as I was concerned. I wanted to be rich, so I actually went to school to be an engineer, and teaching called me. And so I think that Ever Forward came out of this desire to have a life that meant something. Like when I was an engineer, I was making really good money, but I came home from work and I just played video games, and I sat around my apartment in Walnut Creek thinking, is this it? Like I thought that life was supposed to be happy ever after. This ain't really. I can't buy enough video games to keep me happy enough. I can't. There's only so many happy hours in around the Bay Area that I can hit to keep me happy, to figure out like where's happiness ever after. And I realized it has to come from inside. And so every day now that I get up, I'm clear that I'm overjoyed that I get to do this work. It doesn't pay the way I sometimes deep down feel like I want to be paid. But I'm clear that it's a purpose and a mission behind it. So that's why I started Ever Forward. If you told me when I was a first-year teacher I was starting a nonprofit, I would have said, you can't get more nonprofit than teaching, because I didn't think it was possible. But now that I run a nonprofit, it is possible. Let me tell you that. Like, I didn't even know it was possible. But I can tell you today, oh, it's possible. But I'm clear that I'm here. I have a choice not to be here. I have a choice. But I get up every day coming back. And you know, some nights in the night I've quit. I'm quitting. I ain't ever going back there again. The next morning I wake up and I'm back here in my office doing the work because it means that much. So I'll stop there.
I have one more question. Susie, and we have a lot of questions for you, but it would be remiss for us to not just take a moment about your backdrop right now. You've got you've got pictures, you've got the 100,000 mask campaign, and I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about what that campaign is, that movement, and what that entails.
Yeah, so this one is our most recent shirt. It was a beautiful idea. You ever have a beautiful idea that when it comes out in real life, it didn't work the way you planned? So this was when the designer sent it to me. I you ever ask a designer what does that mean? Because it's my stuff. I should know what it meant. I didn't even know what it meant. So this shirt was the Million Mask Movement. I'll leave it right there. Now, if you can, like, if you know. You can see that there's a 1 million inside the word million, right? But see, maybe you can't see. Can you see the green scribble over the top? It says mask. Well, see, just like you, most people who saw it was like, what does it say? Like, they wanted a free shirt, but they didn't know what it meant. So it's like, oh, it's not working the way I planned. The Million Mask Movement is a campaign we started. So while I was at the D.school, it was 2015, right after the documentary The Mask You Live In came out. In that documentary, we made masks with some young men. The mask is, we're not talking about personal protection masks, not like these. We're talking about emotional disconnection masks. The mask that we were probably already wearing that no one could ever see. It wasn't a piece of fabric over our face. It was the smile that we put on when we walked into a certain place. It was the look that we had to put on to get along and fit along. And it is about disconnecting from the part of some of our real selves. Some of the people feel like they don't ever have to wear a mask. That's beautiful. But what we see around the world, we've collected over 50,000 masks from 18 countries, that these masks are sometimes for protection. They're to feel safe. And so we ask people with one picture and 6 words, and you can go to the website and make a mask yourself. It's 100kmasks.com. I'll make sure that I'll share with you all a digital swag bag so you can actually make a mask. It's one picture, 6 words. The picture is a picture of a mask. The back of the mask, the 3 words on the front are 3 things that you gladly let the world see. What are 3 qualities or characteristics you gladly let the world see? And if you think about the back of the mask is things that you normally don't let people see. So I have a bunch of masks all over my desk here. So for example, I'll show you one, see if you can see that. So this is a mask from, I'm reading it backwards. Sam or Laura, can you read the city that this one is from?
Hayward,
California. What age?
16.
16.
And what's the gender?
Male.
And then on the front of the mask for this one, what does it say?
Smiles, positivity, happiness.
I had to find one that had decent handwriting that you could read. Some of them you can't barely read. Now, what about the back? Now, this one, we only asked for 3 words on the back, but this student was ambitious and wanted to get it out. I remember this one because he said, can I write more than 3? I'm like, sure. I mean, that's beautiful. So can you read the one on the back for this?
Yeah. And there's some like relationships between the words as well. So pain and hurt, I think, is like connected to physical and emotional. And then depressed leads to crying, bipolar, drama, dysfunctional family.
So this is just one. And we have over 50,000 masks we've collected. And the campaign is designed because we want people to realize they're not alone. That sometimes we think we're going through stuff and nobody could ever understand. When I did my first workshop at Stanford, somebody in the audience was like, oh yeah, we have that here. It's like the duck syndrome, right? Where everyone is cool like on the surface, everybody walking around with their earphones and just doing the thing and like kicking like hell underneath, they say, right? So this idea that not only does it happen there at Stanford, it happens all over. It happens not only here in the Bay Area, it happens around the country and around the world. And that's what the campaign is about. So we set a new goal. We want to collect 1 million masks. Like, I don't know 1 million people, but I'm clear that the goal is pulling me, and it drove me. I was talking to a mentor earlier today, and I said, when I first came up with the idea of the campaign, it was because someone had saw the documentary. They called me or emailed me and said, your activity doesn't work. And I was like, who are you? First of all, like, what activity are you talking about? They're like, well, I did the activity that you did on the documentary, and it made the classroom really unsafe. And I'm like, now, I was thinking, I didn't say these words out loud. I'm like, the clip was 3 minutes. I was in the room with those young men for 90 minutes. I've known them for several months. Please don't tell me that you took what you saw in 3 minutes and tried to regurgitate it with a group of students. But have one person blame me by calling me, willing to blame me aloud. You know, people are blaming me in silence. So I said, okay, we're going to give it away. So that day, literally, I sat down and with some notes and papers and, me Post-its with d.school way, and I sketched out how could I give it away. And from then on, we've been giving it away to educators. We have over 600 educators that have signed up to use the tools with their students. And I, like as a small nonprofit, you want to be like, well, how am I going to give this away? Like, this is our only little thing that we do. Like, why? We got to figure out how to make money. We got to survive as an organization. And one of my mentors said, Ashanti, do you want to have impact or do you need to make money? I'm like, both. He's like, yeah, but do you need to make impact or do you want to make money? And I said, I want to make impact. And he said, give it away. And thank goodness that, I can. It was not always easy in the decision, but it was a decision that we were glad to make. And we've mailed out over 180,000 mask cards to around the country, mostly in the U.S. And then we created the digital app, the 100kmask.com, because I wanted people, we couldn't afford to mail international. So we said, well, as long as they have a computer, they can do it digitally. And so that's how it happened. So it all came from just trying to figure out how to serve others the best way we could with limited resources and having an impact. And 50,000 masks later, it's been a beautiful journey, and I take them very serious. My team knows I take them very serious. So that's what these all are about. So actually, most of these are about the masks. Yeah. This one I'll show you. This last thing I'll show you before I'll be ready for the next question. So this piece of art was done by one of my former students. He was in the first ever Forward Club in 2004. He's now an art teacher in Oakland, California. He drew this. So if you look on the outside of this face, it says, I'm okay. I'm okay on the outside of the face. And some of you with really good eyes have already seen the word on the inside, right? See the word on the inside? So in between I'm okay, it says not. It's really hard to see, and it's hard to see on purpose. When people are doing okay, it's really easy to say I'm doing okay. But we put it over the mouth because sometimes it's hard to say when you're not doing okay. And this has become the image of our campaign. And it was done by one of the students who was in our first club. Before we were doing anything with masks, before we were talking about before we were a nonprofit, it was just me buying lunch for some young men every week. He created that for us. And so that's what that image is. And then these are the 100K mask and million mask movement. So that's been the journey. It's been since it was 2000, and this campaign really started in 2017, and it's been a wild ride ever since.
Thank you, Ashanti. That's so incredible, and just to hear you talk about going from I was creating what I needed to a small group of young men to shipping things across the country into the world, and 50,000 masks later. Obviously there's been a lot of change, and you've continued to grow what you're doing, your focus, and your nonprofit status as well. Would love to hear about what were those moments when you knew, if there was a specific moment, when you knew, okay, it's time to shift from this group of young men that I work with to giving it to others, or from the club to also professional development and experiences?
Ooh-wee. So yeah, so the professional development part came out of Stanford. It was, okay, you had this club, and we'd already had it at a couple of different schools. I just moved into middle school, and I became a middle school administrator. So we knew that it was already starting to have some spread. We're trying to figure out, well, how do you scale this? How do you grow this, right? And I was, as a nonprofit, grants are really important, right? So I would see these applications and these people who won these big old grants, and they're like, we're going to serve 500,000 kids. And I'm like, show me. Show me. How you gonna get 20 of them to show up if you ain't got no food there? Like, I was really trying to figure out people who had not done anything were claiming they were gonna do all these big numbers with kids, the most underserved. And I'm like, I've been doing this for years. And when you have to recruit students who are not engaged in school. If you got kids who are already gonna go to college, that's not who we're trying to work with. That's fine. We're talking about the kids who are showing the early warning signs of dropping out, and they show them really early: attendance, behavior, and core class failure. That's what Johns Hopkins says about the early warning signs of dropping out. So we're trying to work with those students who don't even want to be at school. So tell me you're going to get a kid who don't want to be at school in the daytime to stay after school to do something extra. Like, it takes some work. So I say all that to say, so when we began to like try and grow it, I was trying to figure out, well, how do we grow it? How do we find mentors and who want to do their own work first? Like, if you want to be a mentor, we love mentors, but you can't be a mentor if you're not willing to tap into your own stuff. If you're not willing to evaluate how you were as a teenager and the tough times and the challenging times. If you're like, it was easy, I just floated through middle school, high school, and then I went to college, and I'm great. So kids are gonna have a hard time relating to you. And it may be true for you, but if you can't even empathize with a challenging time, then it's hard. So I say all that to say that part was the easier part to like think about stretching for different schools. The harder part was trying to figure out, how do you evolve when you're at a school that doesn't have programs like that. So they never had it. They may not even, they say that, well, there could our young men are having struggles. Like, it's a lot of convincing we have to do. And as an outsider now, when I was a teacher, I could start my own little program in my classroom because I don't have to ask anybody for permission. But imagine if I'm an outsider. Now I'm a salesperson. When I come into a school to try and show them my stuff, my best stuff, I'm a salesperson. So, right, like, that's what happens. So now the battle is like, how do I convince you not only that you need it, but that it's important that you invest in it? Because maybe I could come and say, here it is, it's for free. But I found that the way that it began to stretch the first time was I was at a school running Ever Forward. There were some challenges in the administration because I wasn't a conventional teacher. I didn't plan to be a teacher. I came from engineering. I was a little rough around the edges. I'm a little bit aggressive. I'm very loud, and I'm 6'1", and I'm 300 pounds, right? So therefore, like, there's a lot about me that's really clear and direct. And some people have a hard time with my directness, and like sometimes I had battles with administrators. So I think that sometimes with the power plays in these schools, like, it happens that way. So I had to learn sometimes to be quiet. Sometimes I had to get in trouble by the Associated Student Body director because we were doing something that was unconventional. I wanted kids to camp out on the football field for 24 hours and walk and run for 24 hours. Why would anybody want to do that? I don't know why. We're going to just try it. So I think that all the things that happened in Ever Forward's growth was just trying something to engage the students. It wasn't for me. It was for my younger me, but it was for the students. And sometimes when schools are creating stuff, they're trying to create stuff that makes it convenient for them. It's convenient for me to do it on Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. because school is open and everything works well that time. But what if I need to engage them in a different time zone? What if I need to make it look different? What if I need to take them on a college trip for students who are getting 1.0s? And you're like, why do you want to take kids who are doing so horrible in school to go visit colleges? Well, if they never saw it as possible, if they've never even been on a college campus, how do I ever think that they're going to ever want to be on a college campus? And so when you're trying something new and innovative, I don't think there's any innovation that's going to happen without some risk and without some courage. Some courage to say, it may look different than I thought it should look and that I think it should look. It may have to be something different. And so it was about listening to the young men from their words, trying something, testing it, breaking it, messing it up, making somebody mad. Okay, right? Like, I've had janitors so many times come in my room. Hey, Branch, we got to lock up. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. It's like 8 o'clock at night. It's like I'm still in there trying to finish stuff up. Like I got in trouble because of that. The janitor, he's like, Mr. Branch doesn't leave on time. I'm like, give me a key, give me the code, and I'll just turn it on myself. No, we can't do that. That's not in the some bylaws or something, whatever. I don't know. But ultimately, all those journeys were me just trying to figure out how to be the best I could be for my students, and knowing that I had to, it was going to be sometimes uncomfortable. But it was exciting, right? It wasn't like I was feeling like I was dragging around. I was like, this is bringing me life. So yeah. Did I answer the question that you asked?
Absolutely. And something
Okay.
I'm struck by, or it was a lot of things, but that you say that it's exciting. And as you talk about it, it feels exciting. You talked about courage, and it seems so easy for you. And maybe I'm assuming. Has it been? I imagine that it's been a journey. And when you're called for these courageous moments, is it easy for you, or are there kind of other reactions to that?
Okay. So I love this work. I am. I think I'm gonna cry probably. So man. So it's not easy. Like I wanted to be rich. Like it sounds facetious. It sounds like kind of like lofty, right? But I remember growing up with food stamps. I remember like walking into the store with a little booklet. I had to tear money out because it wasn't an EBT card back then. It was like this Monopoly looking money, and I remember the feeling of like feeling less than. Like the way that the cashier would look at you when you pull out this fake looking money, like I feel it right now. So when I worked hard to go to college to be an engineer, because they told me that engineers make a lot of money, is because I had a formula that I was going to be rich by 45. Like I had a plan. I was going to work for this many years. I was going to like find a company I can be a partner in. I was going to be a co-owner. I was going to buy my house in Oakland Hills, and I was going to live happily ever after. I want you to know that I had a plan. And I worked hard. And when I got into the engineering work and I was making money living in Walnut, I'm from Oakland, poor boy from Oakland. I'm living in Walnut Creek. It's like Disneyland. It's like this little, have you ever been there? Have you ever been? Go check it out. Like, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. But I wasn't happy. I was living in this really fun place that was like kind of, they would use the word yuppie, right? But I don't know what yuppie means, but it was just like this little small town. You walk downtown, you go to the restaurant, then you go to the bar, and then you walk back home. It was just like that little town. And then when teaching, I told my mentor earlier today, when teaching called me, and what he helped me remember that it was waiting for me because I had been told many times I should be a teacher. The hardest decision to make when something in my heart said, Ashanti, you should be a teacher. The hardest decision wasn't what school should I go work at? What subject should I teach? Do I want to do it? The hardest decision was I can't live in Walnut Creek anymore. The other decision was how am I going to live the lifestyle that I get to live financially, making what I would call at the time, and the word I use, and so no insulting any teachers, making peanuts. And the challenge with some of my administrating challenges was not because I was arrogant. It was because you're not going to talk to me anyway, paying me peanuts. You know what I'm saying? Like you ain't gonna pay me this little measly check you're gonna pay me and then treat me like I'm not working hard already. Like I refused. So for some administrators, it was difficult because it's not going to happen this way. And because there's a lot of power plays in education. So it was not always easy. When I came back I did a Fulbright fellowship in India, came back, I had found somebody to take over EverForward, kept EverForward running through internet. This sounds like it was a wild thing, right? Well, this is 2004, this is 2007. This was like Facebook had just come out, so it was not that. There was no Instagram, none of that stuff. It was just like email with teenagers. Think about a teenager in 2000. Like, anyway, nonetheless, I kept it running like kind of from afar as much as I could. I came back to still get our events done, and I had a principal who was giving me a lot of hard time. I'm like, I just got back from India like a week ago. Why are you sweating me? Like, I mean, like this is a positive thing that's happening. I'm still here. I'm here to, and I realized that I wasn't going to keep taking it like that. And the decision to leave that school where my EverForward was my pride and joy, my baby that I had created, this thing that I had kind of created into the world. Like I didn't want to leave that school. I thought I would never leave that school. and then I'm making a decision to leave. So I don't know how much time we got, but anyway, the story is it wasn't easy. It hasn't been easy. Some days are still challenging, but I'm clear that the mission, my personal mission, is to serve. Is why I keep at it, and why I keep doing it, and I'm clear that that the young people's lives who I've got, and the adults now, they're like 30. The members who were ever for when they first started their freshman year, they're like 30 now, and we talk, and they're having kids, and they're getting married, and they're buying houses, and it's like beautiful to see the journey of young people who had a chance, who were on a road that probably wasn't going to get them too many places, and they decided to trust that there was a space that they could go and like take off that mask and be more human, and those make it all easy. But in the journey, the day-to-day battles, the day-to-day trying to figure it out, the day-to-day, like right here, I get to craft for you a nice little rectangle. Last 2 weeks ago, I had one of my team members. I was on this podcast, and I said, "Can you take a picture for me?" And I gave her my phone, and she took a picture of me. Later that night, I was going to post it on Instagram. And I went to the picture, and it was a picture of my real desk. And I didn't even know what my real desk looked like from over there, because all I see in the screen is this. Like, if you look like 2 inches on the behind the screen, it's like Dilbert. It's like there's a bunch of stuff. So it's just what it is, right? But I get to craft, I get to create for you this little rectangle right here, so you see what I let you see. But I'm not even turning the computer around. I'm not even gonna even let you see it. But I know that it's clear that it's part of the journey, and so that's what I keep doing. I keep stepping up and showing up and trying to serve as much as I can in this work.
Thank you so much. It's just I'm sure that there's lots of times when we have that projection that we feel like we need to put up, and just the way that you share your story and your story itself just reminds us that we can just let that down. I really appreciate your honesty with that, Ashanti.
Thank you.
I'd love to invite Sam to hop on in here. I know that there's some questions from our group.
Love you, Ashanti.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I love you too, man.
It's both hard to be so far apart, and also like I'm incredibly grateful that we get to connect in this way, you and me, and all of us on here. So I want to acknowledge. I know I'll say and I've heard a few others complain a lot about this time and like having, being sick of Zoom calls and whatnot. But I also just want to express gratitude because, to be able to be in touch like this in this moment, I'm really grateful for it. My job, so Ashanti puts up with me texting him questions every time I have a mask, thought. I'm trying to do it out of generosity. I'm like, maybe he'd find this interesting. So mostly that manifested watching the television program, The Watchmen, which I'm still very curious if you've had a chance to dig into, and how that has interacted with all of the depth of thinking you've done and studying of masks. But I want to. I have another question that came up in the chat, and I want to honor the questions folks in this group have brought. So we can build on the Watchmen at another point in time. But this moment, right? And John, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, mentioned in the chat, like how being curious how your work has adapted, and you just mentioned like 2007 running, programs using the World Wide Web. Obviously, there's a lot of new tools at fingertips. You also mentioned an app that you've created, and I know you've played with like the role of tech in this for a while. So a piece of it is about connecting with youth and helping youth connect with each other. And for me, like the other layer I'd like to add to John's question, if that's okay, is in a time where all of a sudden masks have become this huge societal thing, like where that have to do with our safety, that have to do with both our personal and also our collective and communal well-being. Wear your mask to keep other people safe and whatnot. Like, does that, or how does that interact with the way that you've been thinking and building with young people about masks for years? So I guess the two levels to the question are like, in this moment, like, how are you adapting to help, to connect with young people and help them connect? And then how, if at all, does like what's going on with the pandemic and masks interact with the work?
Yeah, thank you for asking. You know, in March when everything shut down, so or February-ish or whatever, we were preparing to go to South by Southwest. We had our tickets, we had the Airbnb. I had like two young men that were going, one of our mentors. Literally, we were at Wisdom 2.0 on Friday and Saturday. We were flying out on Sunday. Saturday, while we were at Wisdom 2.0, they decided to cancel South by Southwest. I'm like, what? We're leaving tomorrow. Like, what are you talking about? So basically, I have to like, every resource is important. South by Southwest, the airline said, well, we can give you credit. I'm like, what is a 15-year-old going to do with credit? That means I'm just handing him a check, and what if he never uses it? It just goes, I can't even get the credit back. So I'm like, okay, so that's not a good idea. The Airbnb, it hadn't become a national thing yet, so they weren't giving refunds yet. I'm like, I can't, that's money wasted. And we're not doing that. So we went anyway. So this is when while we were there, the NBA shut down, NFL, like everything started shutting down. We were like, oh my goodness, the world's crazy. We were there with young men, like looking for South by Southwest. Everywhere we walked in, we were like, where is South by Southwest? And they were like, oh, you don't know? It's canceled. It was like funny for us because we were just making the good use of the time. But it was when it all started. So we come back to come back to California. Sometimes you can feel like a different world when you leave Austin and come back to Oakland. But anyway, when you come back there, you're back in your, trying to figure out what we're going to do. All of our events, like most of our money was earned revenue. So all of our events, we started putting stickers over everything on our calendar that said Corona. Like it was like our whole 100% of our events got wiped out. We lost over $80,000 of earned revenue. Like that keeps us running. Like gone, like not just half, like gone. So we were like, okay, now I am in charge, right? So like everyone sees the calendar because it's in their office, but what do I do? So what I learned in that moment was that I had to talk to some mentors and just like keep it moving. Like, what are we going to do? And we realized that everything was shut down. Like all of our events, we have cards that are mailed out. We have workshops that are live. How do we make this now digital? And we luckily got the app was already started, so we had already people using it in somewhat way, but we had to turn that into the major tool. So we started just looking for opportunities. And so Hayward Unified, we're doing Friday learning sessions, and they were like, well, we don't have no, I knew one of the guys, he said, we don't have no money for you, but if you want to just do these learning sessions for teachers on Fridays, you can do it. And I'm like, sign me up. And I said, well, it's an opportunity to test it out. Like if it's bad, I'll be like, it was free. So it's just free bad. You just never come back again. And if it's kind of good, then you tell somebody else about it. And so we started like building momentum, and those workshops started going well. How do we create intimate connection in this little I use this rectangle a lot because this is the space that we get to create. All I get is this little piece of real estate on your screen right there. And I'm hoping that as people learn how to like do this work where we connect in a different way. So we just took our workshop that was live and started creating it for virtual, and even for the young men. I know there's these new features that you can turn your camera off and you can only look at everyone else. But I think that when have we ever expected people to go to a meeting and look at themselves the whole time? Like, if you believe and you like yourself and you love yourself, that's great. But what if you don't? And as a young man growing up who had my own issues about what I saw in the mirror, I can imagine and I can understand when students don't want to have their camera on. I can understand. I get it. I'm not mad at them. But I also know that I have this work to do. And so we just learned how to start navigating. How do we talk about it so they don't think that we're not understanding it? Like, I get it. I understand it may be hard to have your camera on, but I need to see you for at least the first. I need to like create spaces for young people who are struggling. And I had that happen through our Summer Leadership Academy. So we just navigated from live to online to like creating the spaces, and we've been getting really good at building those spaces. And so the app, the 100kmass.com, we give that away for free. People can go in and use it. They can create their own teacher code. We're trying to work on version 2.0, which is actually, we just signed the contract Monday. So that the 2.0 is getting in the works. Like, I don't have no venture capitalists. I don't have no angel investors. I ain't got no, I believe in it enough to say that I'm going to push it, and it's working. And so, like, it's like that. It's like, I'm going to invest in building out the second version of this app during a pandemic while I'm trying to like still build an organization. Like, what makes people do stuff like that? Well, it's heart to me. There's a quote that says, the longest distance that most people travel is the 18 inches between their head and their heart. and most people get stuck in their heads. And I know that, growing up with my life through Oakland and growing up, I didn't see tough times. And I'm not saying this is not tougher than any other time, but I'm just saying I'm not getting stuck. I'm not getting stuck. I refuse to like sit around. Something. So in July I had COVID, and I didn't plan to tell this. So I went home. I was feeling ill. It was like my body was aching. I was like feeling all this stuff, and once I found out, so it took a process of taking the test, and then 5 days later they gave me the thing. I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't. I've only recently started telling people now that I can tell it as a testimony than as opposed to telling it while it was happening. While it was happening, people would text me and be like, hey, how you doing, Ashanti? And I'd be like, they're not really asking. And I'll just put the mask on and be like, oh, I'm doing fine. How are you? I'm on the floor. I'm spinning around in circles. I just can't even, I can't smell nothing. Like I can't taste it. Like it was not fun. And one of our alumni from Ever Forward passed away on July 7th from COVID. So it was really real for me. So all that to say, what we've done during this time is that I take it really serious. And I'm doing the best I can, knowing that people are experiencing this time very different ways. Some people are thriving. I see people talking about it all the time. We're doing so great during this season. And some people are struggling. And so my role is to help people wherever they are in that space to just be able to do that. So, I'm working through all of that. I'm more human first than I am trying to be a executive director of some organization, and I'm trying to like do the best I can as executive director while being human. And the same thing for my team. I have a team member who doesn't want to work from the office. Okay, work from home. Like, are we trying to figure out how to navigate that? I don't know whether we should use Zoom, Slack, Ring Central, Monday.com. I don't even know which one of these things we should be using. I get irritated trying to test them all out. Like the free version is just whack. So you're going to try to and then you forget to cancel the freaking version that you paid for. And now you got somebody charging you from wherever they're from because they have no phone number on the website. You want to talk about that's real talk. So anyway, I'll stop there. I know we're getting close to the end, but yeah, that's what we're doing. We're moving. We're just moving and trying to do the best we can.
Thank you for just modeling the peeling off of masks and just like I mean, we use the word courage. I feel like you live it and model it for all of us in a really powerful way. One of the things you talked about in what you just shared was something that's probably familiar to others on this call, was like the calendar with like the sticker going up over all these dates and having to really reimagine how to keep the lights on, how to keep the ship afloat, whatever metaphor we want to use. I'm just curious, before folks have to go, I know some people are going to be logging off shortly. Is there a way to support Ever Forward Club, like for us micro venture capitalists and and supporters? Like, do you have a donation page on the website? Like, can we put a link in the chat here in case folks are moved to contribute in whatever way that we're able to?
Absolutely. I'm going to put the digital swag bag there so people can take a look at that. There's some resources, some videos, some things they can watch. Yes, they're on our website, everforwardclub.org. They can go and donate there. We're trying to create a GoFundMe account for schools that want to do this work with their students but can't. So we're going to give opportunities for people to like sponsor a teacher or sponsor a class. So our next version of the shirt, which is actually easy to read and really cool too. So this will be a collector's item, but we're gonna sell our shirts as a fundraiser. One of our alumna, her name is Erica. She is starting her own little company. She's one to help students who are trying to like apply for colleges. So she said anything she raises, we'll match it. So yeah, they can always support. Like if you can go to our website. If you're a check person, you can mail it to our address on our website. If you're a digital person, there's all the ways to pay there available to you. And we thankful for all the support. We're thankful that we earn your support. And if it's like something that you can't do, maybe you know somebody who can support. Maybe it's like maybe what you can do is, but who you can connect us with. And I'm getting better at asking for help. I'm really bad at it, but I'm getting better, much better at it than before. And so we're thankful for all the support that people can provide. All of it counts. Every support matters, whether it's time, whether it's talent, or whether it's cashola too. So
Yeah, and I was trying to do it for you so you didn't have to do it. But and just to be
I'm
clear with
practicing.
everyone, for those of you who have joined our events, like this is not really a solicitation space. Like we don't usually like pitch, you know, it's not a fundraising thing, but it's also like this is real. Like what you just described is real, and I know many of us have experienced it in different ways, and we got to look out for each other right now. So, you know, I don't think anyone on this call is not touched up in terms of understanding the power of the work you're doing and the calling you feel for it. So like, how do we, you know, how do we all support that? And I love your point. Like, it's not necessarily dollars. It can be time. It can be passing information along. It can be actually going on the site and doing the mass, you know, just doing the experience for, you know, ourselves. And we got to help figure out how to, like, you know, keep stuff moving through this time. So I just want to like, you know, we'll call that out and encourage folks to check it out and think about the ways to support. I also like was really struck by you sharing about the loss of one of your alums, and just was wondering, we're really close to the end here. I was wondering if it would feel appropriate to you for us to all just have a moment of silence to honor that.
Actually, if you knew Dante, silence is not good for him. So it would be actually
Okay.
a moment of noise would be actually more inappropriate to what he called me in the hospital on a respirator trying to talk, and I'm like, "Are you out of your mind? Hang up this phone." But that's Dante. So just if you as loud as you can make a noise where you're at, if it's like, yeah, whatever it is, just giving honor to him always being willing to speak out loud. That's what he would love. So.
Beautiful.
One.
Thank you for flipping that. It's important to honor him the way that he should be honored. Can we like make sure everyone's mute is off? I know people are in different family situations, but as loud as you can, like try to make the neighbors curious what's going on. And Ashanti, maybe you count us down and we make as loud a noise as we possibly can. And that's Laura and Susie, is that cool? Can we close out on that?
I got a couple things to share, but yes, we have a couple more things I want to wrap up, but yes.
3, 2, 1.
Thanks, Dante.
Dante!
Thank you, Dante.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. He would appreciate that too.
Susie.
Okay, jump right in. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Ashanti. And I know we're right at 5 o'clock, so I just want to do a couple of quick announcements of future learning dens. We have October 21st and 28th. We will be focused on school safety and also something with Project Wayfinder. So feel free to please join us with those. And then next week, right around this time, 3:30 on Wednesday, we are having sound practice release party. So what that is basically some folks here on the K12 lab got together with another artist, and they put together equity tools that are sound-based. So the recognition that we all spend a lot of time on Zoom. So this is going to be the release party for that, and they'll be launching some of those great tools. So I hope you can join us for that as well. And if we are all still off mute, could we just give a huge round of applause to Ashanti for being here and sharing your message here. Thank you so much, Ashanti.
Thank you, Ashanti. I am honored as your friend and colleague that you kicked us off today. What I loved so much about this conversation was that you embodied everything what I hope this den would be, which is real talk, real authenticity, and real stories. And so I just, as someone, as our co-director and bringing in the lab together, I care for you deeply, as I think you know. And I am just honored that you shared your space and your stories with us, because we do connect to stories. And I loved how you flipped the idea of noise, because I think all of us in this moment need to use our voices more, right? Silence doesn't help anymore. So I just want to thank you all. And if you all have questions and any other things you need to connect with us, we would love to reach out. Sam and I are always looking for great suggestions on Learning Den, so feel free to reach out to us in the future. Find us on Twitter, and we will share this video out. We will put it on the D.school K12 YouTube channel, so you can go back and hear the great stories. But thank you all. Be safe, and have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Ashanti.
Bye, Ashanti.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.